Now, once he got on, did he ever reach back to you?
Yeah, Jay had me come and do Summer Jam with him one year. I think that was the time when he had that. Me and Pac went in the studio and did a song together. And then them little dudes.
Outlaws.
Yeah.
Outlaws.
They came, like, as soon as we got there, they came up to Pac talking about, yo, Lauryn Hill dissed you, Mobb Deep dissed you.
It is true. Tupac, he really had an issue with Jay-Z. He really didn't like him then.
Not at all. I think that if Pac was alive, it would have been a whole different story. And as much money as Jay-Z has, he still hasn't accomplished what Tupac accomplished before he was at 25 years old.
Big Daddy Kane just says something about Jay-Z and Tupac that nobody saw coming. And let's just say that the story we've been told is not the full picture. As you probably know, Kane helped put Jay-Z on and gave him his big break. That's not even up for debate. Jay was opening for Kane, freestyling on stage, rapping in his crew cypher. But as Jay got bigger, Kane's name started to disappear from the narrative. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Kane's comments also connect back to Tupac. Because while Kane was opening doors for Jay-Z in the East, Pac was firing warning shots, calling out the industry, calling out fake players, and yes, throwing shade at Jay. So what is Kane really saying? Did Jay-Z take more than just inspiration from him and Pac? Did he build his legacy by stepping over theirs and never looking back? Let's break it down.
Hold up. Tupac is a lyricist. See what I'm saying? It's just that he's not one of those lyrical MCs that spit stuff, but his stuff is, he spit deep lyrics that touch your soul.
When Jay-Z was still an unknown MC in the early 90s, Big Daddy Kane stepped in and took Jay on tour during his Chocolate City run, letting him spit freestyles on stage while Kane changed outfits. And it wasn't just stage time. Kane also helped shop Jay-Z's demo, recording several tracks and sending them to major labels. And based on what Kane said, it wasn't easy to sell Jay-Z because labels simply didn't like his style.
Jay-Z, I heard that no one really wanted to sign him when you was shopping him around the record labels. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This was, I want to say, I don't know, 90, 91 maybe. We was, we recorded some songs, probably about 4 or 5 songs on Jay-Z, and shopped them to several different record labels, and they all passed.
And while those labels passed, Kane still believed Jay would eventually grow into his own. And he was right. But here's where the narrative gets tricky. Kane's influence on Jay's early fast-paced, smooth, yet aggressive flow is undeniable. But Jay-Z's later interviews, documentaries, and public narratives paid little attention to this formative relationship. In his memoir, Decoded, Jay-Z does acknowledge learning pacing and stagecraft from Kane. But there's no deep gratitude or repeated homage, just a brief nod. And Kane noticed this silence. There were even rumors that Jay's line on Do It Again, Put Your Hands Up, was a diss at Kane. Jay raps, I've seen the same ish happen to Kane. 3 cuts in your eyebrows, trying to wild out. As you all know, Kane was known for shaving 3 lines into his eyebrows as part of his signature style. And that line can easily sound like a sly diss to Big Daddy Kane, even if Jay never confirmed it. Kane was iconic for his 3 eyebrow slits, a style statement that became part of his brand in the late 80s and early 90s. By the late 90s, Kane's commercial star had faded and younger rappers were taken over. So when Jay, who once looked up to Kane and was even mentored by him, delivered that line in a cold, dismissive tone on Do It Again, it came off to some as mockery. Angie Martinez also reportedly made a comment on her show that it was a disc, which fed the rumor mill, although Kane later brushed it off publicly and then add that to Jay-Z's well-known jealousy. Jay admitted he studied Kane closely backstage, but as Jay transformed into the gangster hustler persona, Kane stepped back so Jay could craft his own identity. And now years later, Kane wonders if Jay let him out of the picture too deliberately.
I remember actually having a record deal through a production deal with someone else and recording, and then the next thing you know, someone else on the label blew up.
But here's the thing. Kane wasn't alone. Around the same time that Kane was stepping back, Tupac was stepping up, and he was already calling out the exact kind of industry games Kane is now hinting at. Pac saw the shift from artists with substance and style to a new breed of rappers chasing image, money, and power. And one name that started popping up was Jay-Z. Back in the day, there were a lot of rumors flying around that Jay-Z felt threatened by Tupac. Like deep down he knew he couldn't match Pac's charisma because as sharp as Jay was with the wordplay, Pac had the raw presence and untouchable it factor that most rappers just can't teach. And things eventually boiled over. Jay and Pac actually had real beef right before Pac died. And it all kicked off when Jay teamed up with Biggie to throw jabs at the West Coast. Jay and Big, both from Bed-Stuy, started getting close in the early 90s. And in 96, they dropped Brooklyn's Finest, one of the standout tracks on Jay's Reasonable Doubt. But that collab lit the fuse. Irv Gotti, who was working closely with Jay at the time, later said he warned him not to put Biggie on that track. The East Coast, West Coast beef was already out of control, and Irv knew that adding fuel to the fire could backfire fast.
You got to go back to Brooklyn's Finest. I was dead set against it. I was telling Jay, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And he was like, why? And I was just like, he's too strong. I said, but before we take over the world, we got to take over the West Coast. Before we take over the West Coast, we got to take over the East Coast. Before we take over the East Coast, we got to take over New York. Before we take over New York, you got to take over Brooklyn. And he owns all that. And I was like, this is not a whack. So I was just like, I was in fear that I was like, yo, you may come off like this little man. You understand?
Now, Pac and Biggie actually started out cool. But things took a dark turn in '94 when Pac was shot 5 times during a robbery at Quad Studios. Pac believed Biggie and Diddy knew something about the setup but didn't give him a heads up, and that was a betrayal he never forgot. But Biggie, for his part, always denied having any knowledge of.
Yeah, I think Pac was more upset that that word was getting back to him, that the people that did do this to him was affiliated one way or another with Biggie and them, whether they was extorting him or word got back that they was going to do this to Pac. So this is one of the reasons that Pac was upset.
So after the Quad Studio shooting, Pac and Biggie started taking shots at each other in public. Shortly before Jay dropped Brooklyn's Finest, Biggie released Who Shot You? And by then, East Coast, West Coast tensions were already at a boiling point. And that's why Gotti warned Jay to hold off on dropping his track with Biggie. But Jay went ahead and released Brooklyn's Finest anyway, and that only made things worse because in his verse, Biggie threw direct jabs at Pac, calling him his son and hinting at the rumors about Pac and Faith Evans.
And then what Big did, which I was like, that's why Pac was on Jay, because of Brooklyn's Finest. If they have twins, you probably have 2 Pacs. Get it? 2 Pacs. And Jay's on the record with him. So now he's like, you, ain't no like me. Jay-Z, then he start bombing on Jay.
So after this, Pac started firing shots at Jay-Z on tracks like Bomb First, My Second Reply, and F Friend. By then, fans were expecting Jay to clap back with a full-on diss track, but he never got the chance. Just weeks later, Pac was fatally gunned down in a drive-by in Las Vegas. But here's the twist. Jay did write a response track called Scathing, which was reportedly a brutal diss aimed at Pac. He never released it, supposedly because he didn't want to fan the flames while Pac was still alive. But not many people know that after Pac's death, Jay actually performed this track live at the Apollo. According to DJ Clark Kent, the song was wildly disrespectful. And Jay only did it because he felt like he had something to prove. Like he was carrying a chip on his shoulder and finally letting it out.
And it's funny because before he performed the record, he was like, yo, no disrespect to the dead, but you just can't say whatever to me.
Oh, so he actually performed it after Pac passed?
Yeah. Yeah, we was at the Apollo. It was, I will say this, if you can find anybody who was at that show and the Apollo was packed, they will tell you that it was absolutely crazy, the things he was saying. I was like, Lord Jesus. Like when you know when you hear something, it's one thing, but then when you hear it performed, it's like, jeez. It was super tough.
But why would Jay choose to perform that diss track after Pac was already gone? Well, there's been a lot of talk that Jay actually felt relieved when Pac died because he was always intimidated by him and figured he could never outshine the legend. In fact, Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal, revealed that Jay was so scared of Pac that he once refused to leave his hotel room in Las Vegas for a show simply because Pac and his crew were in.
The story is that Jay was going to try to perform in Vegas, but Pac was in Vegas, and him and his dudes now. And they wasn't gonna let Jay-Z come out the hotel. They found out where Jay was at. And Jay wasn't gonna come out the hotel. He was gonna miss that performance or whatever like that. Do that concert, and Jay was scared of the motherfucker. Jay wasn't coming out that hotel until he got clearance.
A lot of fans have called Jay-Z sneaky for never directly dissing Pac while he was alive. But the truth is Jay and his East Coast crew were constantly throwing subliminal shots, trying to provoke Pac because they knew he'd take that bait emotionally. Rappers who were around back then say Jay was seriously jealous of Pac's charisma. No matter how nice Jay's bars were, he knew he could never match Pac's natural charm. Even Nas later hinted in an interview that Jay-Z was bitter about Pac and Biggie's success. And Jay actually told Nas he was a better rapper than both of them. Nas told Vibe we were kicking it, and he told me that he's better than Biggie. I looked at him like he was crazy. Then he really got crazy and said that Tupac and DMX were not lyricists. I told him that I disagreed with him, that Tupac was the greatest ever, period. But that's not the only reason Jay-Z has been called a snake by fans. There's also the fact that Jay-Z stayed close to Diddy even after rumors surfaced linking Diddy to Tupac's murder. In fact, after both Pac and Biggie were gone, Diddy started publicly praising Jay, saying he was the one who filled their shoes.
Bro, you filled them shoes though. You came in and you know what I'm saying? So we definitely give thanks for you. You know what I'm saying? Because you definitely, came in and I just know how much Big like really looked up to Jay. You know what I'm saying? They looked up to each other. And yeah, that is crazy to have to step into the shoes of like two people, because that's all it was those two people, and they had like the game. They had things on lock. Hove was coming, you know what I'm saying? But like, it was like these two cats was just so big, you know what I'm saying? And then so it's like to have all of that, like, come on you and have that responsibility to keep this shit fly and keep the art of it going. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because I think Hov really kept Hov kept the art of it going and was able to take where they was at and take it, take it even higher.
And despite all the rumors swirling around Diddy over the years, Jay stayed close to him, right until that 2023 Cassie lawsuit blew everything up. But now all of a sudden Jay developed amnesia, and he's out here saying he and Diddy were never even friends. So what's the real takeaway here? Big Daddy Kane hinting at betrayal and disappointment. Tupac's warning, Jay-Z's shady moves behind the scenes. It all paints Jay as a man who not only borrowed flows, but strategically stepped over mentors and rivals to build his empire. And as talented as he is, a lot of Jay's industry peers are starting to openly talk about how Jay's legacy is soaked in betrayal and cold calculation. But let me hear your thoughts on all this. Was Jay-Z just playing the game, or did he cross a line? Did he betray Kane after he blew up and turned his back on those who helped him? And how do you feel about Jay being jealous of Tupac? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next video.